You know, as an up-and-coming YouTuber, I pride myself on really diving deep and exploring topics that no one has ever talked about at length before. Ooh, I want to do that. There are a ton of YouTube videos talking about quirky, strange, and funny Nintendo commercials. There are even other videos talking specifically about cursed Nintendo commercials, but no one has ever truly dissected them to find what makes them tick. And not only that, but I've noticed that a few of my absolute favorite commercials have been ignored after all this time. So I figured I'd make a video of my own. What makes me more qualified than all these other YouTubers to talk about cursed Nintendo content? I don't know, but I thought it would make for a fun video while also bringing attention to some commercials that I think have strongly warranted discussion for a very long time. Get it? Got it? Good.
Let's do it.
This one is a classic that has haunted the inner reaches of my mind since I first saw it as a young boy. These dumb moron kids are playing Super Mario 64 and continually long jumping into the same block that they could be triple jumping over, and eventually they give up and blame Mario for their own shortcomings as gamers. They leave the TV on so as to run up the electric bill as much as possible, and Mario decides to take matters into his own hands. He leaps out of the TV in a slow, horrifying 90s effect. Side note right here, most special effects that show characters jumping in and out of TVs are things that I generally find horrifying. There's something really uncanny about them that bothers me. It's not so bad if it only lasts a second or if there's not much of an effect to it, but in cases like this where they linger on it and show the TV screen itself stretching and contorting, yeah, that's bothered me since I was a kid. Moving on, Mario hops onto this skateboard and makes his way into this family's refrigerator, all with wacky cartoon sound effects while the dog looks on, paralyzed with fear. Mario catapults his way into the fridge and begins drinking this poor family's milk straight from the carton. This causes him to grow. Okay, so there are a couple things wrong here, and before I get into exactly what makes this cursed, I want to just ask a simple question. How does Mario know what milk is and that it helps you grow? This might sound weird. Oh, of course this grown man knows what milk is, but hear me out. Have you ever seen milk in the Mushroom Kingdom? There's no evidence that it even exists in this universe, much less that it's a common commodity. How would Mario not only know what milk is and where to find it, but also that it would make him grow? Just asking. I looked on the old Mario wiki, and the only times it seems to pop up in Mario games are in Mario's Time Machine and Paper Mario. Mario. Although there's evidence enough that both of these are invalid. In Mario's Time Machine, Mario gets some milk in Paris from a tailor and then gives it to a waiter in some cafe. He never even had a sip? Maybe it left an impression on him? Although this game's canon status is questionable at best, so let's take a look at Paper Mario. So in Paper Mario, milk is one of the items that Princess Peach needs to make a cake. Wait, there's cake in Mario 64. That's the first thing you see in the game. She says,
I baked a cake for you.
My theory is falling apart like a house of cards before my eyes. Moving along. So, continuity aside, I want to talk about this shot in detail because this is what makes this commercial totally cursed. Like, totally. First of all, ignoring Mario's incredibly poor manners, what happens when he actually starts drinking the milk is what I'm interested in. He grows, right? Because
the calcium in milk helps bones grow.
But I want you to take a good look and listen to this. First of all, while the sound effect used when Mario expands is cartoony and sounds like it's from a video game, this isn't the usual Mario growth sound. You know. In fact, I think that this particular sound was made specifically for this commercial. They just told someone to make a sound effect that sounded video gamey, but it's combined with the more realistic sound of Mario, filling out. Yeah, and speaking of Mario filling out, look at him as he grows. He like bulges in a really off-kilter way. And that bulging animation gradually gets more extreme as he gets larger. Did this bother anyone else? I don't know what it is about this specific scene that has bothered me so much for so long. Maybe it's that I'm not used to seeing Mario have a unique growing animation where he not only reacts to it, but seems to actively push it forward by continuing to chug the milk. Maybe it's the fact that once Mario returns to the game, his size dwarfs everything. He's too powerful. They can't even linger around the shop for too long because Mario's new strength is simply too horrifying. Maybe it's the combination of strange, unique sound effects with the uncanny, bulging animation, followed by a close-up shot of the strange Mario model that they chose to use for this commercial, wiping the milk off his face. Actually, let's talk about that a little bit. The model. Now, as far as early CGI goes, especially if we're talking about video game commercials, you could do a lot worse than this model. If anything, it's very faithful to Mario's design, and it could almost pass for a promotional render if you see it from far away. But that's the problem. Almost. After doing some cross comparisons with the model of Mario that was famously used in promo artwork around that time period, as well as the Japanese Paper Mario commercial that features what appears to be that same model, I can say with absolute confidence that this model is not that. Look closely. It's definitely a higher poly count than the in-game model, but compared to the usual Silicon Graphics model, it's much lower poly. My first instinct was that they just didn't have the promotional model and tried to replicate it as best they could. I mean, it's not a bad-looking model, it's faithful to the character design. My good friend and Monkey Ball editor-in-chief Will pointed out that this could also be because the in-game model is made up of chunks and not one big cohesive model. So it could also be a way of trying to emulate the in-game look without it being super clunky to animate and look at. Whatever the reason, this model is one that I have not seen anywhere else, and I'm not used to seeing it close up and expressing itself. It looks weird. So, for a variety of reasons, this commercial is incredibly uncanny and a strange, strange oddity in the history of the character. At least they didn't go the same direction as the magazine version of this ad, where Mario has apparently downed an entire tiny carton of milk, and it's enough to make him more than twice the size of the TV, breaking through the top of it, and the TV still works. Definitely a fire hazard, but it still works. And even more terrifying is that Mario still has a carton left to go. This is the scariest thing I can imagine. Okay, so this one is interesting. It almost has the opposite problem compared to the Super Mario 64 Got Milk commercial. Whereas that ad had fluid animation with a slightly off-kilter model and maybe a little bit too much attention put into it, this commercial's actual render of Banjo and Kazooie is not even remotely the problem. The model seems to be the same as a usual promotional render of the era. No, the problem is all the animation. Well, I mean, the ad is written in a painfully 90s manner, but that's a minor issue at worst compared to this shit. It's a little hard to see the full extent of this travesty in full speed, but if you slow it down, you'll simultaneously be viewing comedy gold and a crash course in how not to animate a 3D model. Look at how choppy they are, for one. Fluid, Got Milk-esque animation, this is not. Although, it's one thing to have animation that isn't smooth and buttery. It's another thing to have animation that is cursed, and while their choppy movement adds to that, the unnatural vibe that they give off is really what lands this commercial here. Look at their teeth! Look at their teeth! I'd like to go a little bit more in depth on my favorite shot of the commercial, where Banjo says hello to Mr. Keebler. Well, that's a lie. He says gah, but you know what I mean. Anyways, just look at this. They start off actually trying to animate him peeking through the window, but then they just skip some frames to get him there. Banjo opening his mouth looks very strange, especially because he seems to grow for like 2 frames. Also, the top of his head somehow clips through the tree into the black void that's not supposed to be there. This is genuinely insane to me. Like, how? And 2 additional notes.
We're looking for a magic puzzle piece.
Like that one?
Exactamundo!
These are jiggies, not magic puzzle pieces. Also, holy shit, this dude is strong. He pulled an entire home entertainment setup out of his pockets and then just held them up with his own 2 arms. But yeah, this one is never talked about and it's just gold beginning to end.
Many will enter, few will win. Bummer, we're not eligible.
This has given me some flashbacks to the Got Milk commercial, but it's a bit different. For one thing, this commercial is the first one we're covering today that's not from the US. This video says it's from Mexico, so we'll go with that. Although, wait, there is some Arabic text at the end of the commercial, and apparently the drink is very popular in places like the Gulf states and Egypt, so maybe it's from over there. Mirinda. Mirinda. I don't know. The country of origin isn't the most important thing for this ad. The important thing is that Link is a thirsty, thirsty lad in this commercial. Woo! Unlike either of the previous commercials, this one actually seems to use the character's in-game model. What makes this particularly jarring is that you can pretty much spot the exact moment where it switches from in-game footage to new animation, and it results in some pretty cursed shots. The first of which is Link grinding to a halt and looking back towards the camera like he's Sonic the goddamn Hedgehog. This shot of Link grabbing a cold, crisp Mirinda beverage from the cooler is also really strange for a variety of reasons. For one, look at those ice cubes. I get that we're dealing with a Nintendo 64 here, but this just isn't right. They look like rocks. Not to mention that the little zoom that it does is so needlessly dramatic in a very un-Nintendo way. I wish I could describe this better. It's just weird looking and really funny. Like, holy shit, it's a pop, soda pop, Coke. The animation of Link slamming back his artificial orange beverage is surprisingly spot on, but the fact that they keep showing him drinking it with his eyebrows gradually tilting up further and further in intense satisfaction is really strange and funny. Honestly, while this commercial is a little infamous, having received more attention than some of the others I'm covering in this video, I'm very surprised that it never achieved full meme status. This would make an amazing GIF. Surprised they go as far as to show this child behaving irresponsibly with his Nintendo 64 control deck. That's not how you preserve a controller, bud. And finally, just in case all of that wasn't enough, we close on two final cursed shots. The child's brother walks in and sees him shaking his CRT and knocking shit over, just trying to get the hero of time to stop enjoying his delicious his beverage. We get one last awful shot from the inside of the TV, and okay, dissection time. First of all, I think it really throws me off that Link is the only thing from the game world pictured here. Also, what is he doing? He finally stops drinking and briefly inspects the bottle. What does he think is happening? Is he aware of the shaking CRT? Can he feel it? Also, not a fan of the fact that the screen is clearly moving as the kid hits it. It weirds me out. Luckily, the TV turns off pretty quickly, so we don't have to linger on it for long. This one here. This one honestly doesn't require much in the line of explanation. The concept isn't bad. We gotta advertise a Pikmin game. What are you doing, Pikmin? You control a bunch of these cute little guys to help you do cute little stuff. How do we want to illustrate that in 30 seconds? Oh, let's have this dude use Pikmin to go get him a hot dog. It's cute. It's funny. I'm running the numbers. Yeah, CGI is really expensive. I mean, we could animate these Pikmin, but with this advertising budget, we could also just order skin-tight spandex Pikmin costumes instead. And more cocaine. Could definitely use more coke. This is most certainly someone's fetish. There's even a pronounced ass shot. Fun fact, I was watching this commercial in slow motion, and I noticed this lady wearing a shirt that is the exact shade of purple that the Pikmin costumes are. I also have to say that this casting and acting did the ad no favors. Far from it. Can you imagine this mustachioed lad in a Pikmin bodysuit running towards you? I personally can't shake the thought. I haven't slept in weeks. Please help! This crowd of smiling flesh bags swaying back and forth in Pikmin costumes, shouting hot dog over and over again in a cacophonous mess, surrounding you, engulfing everything around them. Uniquely horrifying. This one's never gonna leave my memory. Thanks, Nintendo.
Pikmin 2 with 2-player mode, may the best scavenger win. Only for Nintendo GameCube, rated for everyone.
And finally, the next one that I'm about to show you is actually the catalyst that made me want to make this video. The entire commercial exudes a powerful energy, so it's hard to know where to start. First, I better give some context. So, a lot of airlines offer in-flight entertainment, which usually takes the form of in-flight movies, but in a lot of cases, video games are also an option. Nintendo has partnered with various airlines over the years to offer their games on some flights. There's a lot I could go into here, but suffice it to say that in the late 90s, Singapore Airlines began to offer emulated Game Boy Color games on their flights through their in-flight Chris World service, and Super Mario Bros. Deluxe was among them. Now, there was apparently a pretty limited selection of games, and it sounds like the emulation wasn't all that great, but this does at least set the stage for what we're dealing with here. Sometime in the early 2000s, I've heard 2002, but I can't verify it, Singo Airlines was like, hey yo, Nintendo, we want to advertise how killer and cool and hip and baller our in-flight shit is. Can we use the man, the myth, the Mario? And Nintendo was like, yeah, sure, why not? There's a lot to unpack here. I'll preface it by saying that a lot of these points have been made in the comments of this commercial, but they bear repeating. I do enjoy that this plays out almost like a more modern version of the Got Milk ad. Mario jumps out of the TV, although it looks decidedly less freaky here than before, maybe aside from this frame. I think the most striking thing about this ad is that it doesn't seem to fit with any one era. Let me explain what I mean. Look at the Super Mario 64 Got Milk ad. There is no mistaking this. It features Super Mario 64 specifically. Mario uses a design very distinctly similar to that game, and there are no references to Mario games or products from other time frames. Like, Mario doesn't return to Super Mario World after he gets some milk, and he doesn't use voice clips from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. The Singapore Airlines commercial isn't like that. It explicitly features Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. How do I know it's deluxe? Look at these blocks. Those aren't on the Nintendo Entertainment System. The NES was incapable of rendering such technologically advanced disappearing blocks. Shut up, Mega Man. Shut up, shut up, shut up! But then, the music and voice clips are from Mario Sunshine, and some of those voice clips sound more like Shadow Mario than actual Mario. And Mario's character design? A lot of the comments call it his N64 design, but I wasn't convinced until I freeze-framed it and compared it side by side. It's like some strange amalgamation of his N64 and GameCube renders. Although some of the ways in which he's animated don't resemble either and look very off for him. Look at the mustache, Jesus Christ. That's to say nothing of the way he behaves. He runs around wreaking havoc, jumping through all these screens. And when they showed the gold coins, I was half expecting Wario to show up. Not for Mario to pull a Wario and Scrooge McDuck his way into that screen too. There's so many small oddities that I'm just gonna do a small section here to cover a few others. Mario seems to glow with a bit of luminescence to mimic the TV, and it looks really uncanny, and I don't think I like it. They do a little bit of this in the Got Milk commercial too, but it's more pronounced here, and it's very strange. This commercial is the origin of the infamous Mario headbanging gif that seemed to be everywhere in the mid to late 2000s, and for some reason it looks more on model than the rest of the commercial. Who the hell is this band and what are they doing today? Why does this ad seem to foreshadow Super Mario Odyssey? And yeah, okay, this lady chose to rewind the Game Boy Color emulator, but hear me out. Mario ran out of the screen when the kid looked away. What exactly is going to stop him from just doing this again? Or even doing it when the plane's not flying and no one's on board? Actually, wait, they'd probably have everything turned off. If Mario is sentient, what happens when his game is turned off? This commercial has raised entirely too many questions and answered exactly 0 of them. We're done. We're done. No, it's over. We're done. We're done. But that's the beauty of cursed commercials, isn't it? They crop up on TV only for a little while. You catch some brief glimpses of them, and then, just as quickly, they vanish, and you scarcely ever get insight into how they were birthed. They're just these mysterious pieces of media, inescapably linked to other, bigger, more documented, and long-lasting pieces of media. And these ones happen to be tied to pieces of media that I love very dearly. I hope we get to learn more about them someday. It doesn't help that it's almost impossible to find credits for most of these ads, but hopefully some of the people responsible come forward at some point. They deserve credit for their work. I'm Jonii, and I hope you found this interesting. Peace.